See how simple that was? We're live streaming out into the world here on the Long Box Punk. I'm Chris. I'm the punk, as I call myself. He's Matt McGrath. Matt, thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening, talking comic books, talking shop, and probably, I'm assuming, sharing plenty of laughs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to laugh. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, hey, for those that don't know you, I would love to hear your origin story, how you ended up making comics, and like how we ended up uh, with the current Kickstarter for the third issue of your book that's happening right now. The campaign is running right now. So how do we end up here?
Good question. Yeah, I've always been like inclined towards the arts. So I guess like my origin story starts with drama school. Like kind of from a young age, I was really into acting. And like that's what I wanted to be when I was older, like an actor. And
Mhm.
like I made a pretty decent go of it. But yeah, I guess like the writing kind of came from, so I started with acting and I'm like, I really want to direct films. So writing kind of came naturally from, I nobody's going to give me a script to act in or direct, so I kind of have to do it myself. So it was very functional. Yeah, just a way of getting like my acting stuff and my directing stuff out there. Wasn't really that interested in writing, to be honest. It's just like a means to an end. But then along the way, just kind of the writing took over more, I don't know, interest wise. Yeah, I kind of discovered like, not really that into directing. It's a lot of work. Had to like go out and manage people and huge sets and too much work. And with writing, I just get to like stay at home and be in my pajamas all day and just, yeah, type away and don't have to go anywhere. So, yeah, that's where I eventually kind of, I guess, settled.
Okay. And so how did so I'm also a theater kid, mainly because for me it was like I had to do some sort of fun artsy class in high school, and my mom was like, well, your sister did like art and painting and drawing, so you're not allowed to do that. You have to be different because otherwise you'll be competing. And I was like, but I want to do art, mom. And she was like, no, do something different. I was like, well, I can't sing, so I guess I'm gonna go act. And so that's how I ended up acting. And then I like found myself doing that and loved it. And now instead of being on stage or on TV, I'm on smart devices and YouTube videos. So
Oh,
um,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anytime I get to chat with a fellow theater kid is a good time. So how do comics play into that? Were you also like reading comics growing up, or did that just
Yeah.
kind of like flow with your path of like getting into more and more writing?
Yeah. They weren't really together. Like over here was like acting and
Mhm.
directing and kind of writing. And over here is like my interest in comics. Like
Okay.
I never really had any interest in writing comics growing up. So yeah, like I've always been into comics. I guess like, as a kid, a millennial, I got into superheroes through like Batman the animated series, X-Men 92, the Spider-Man series from 90, what, 95, 96.
Yep.
And then yeah, like the Tim Burton Batman. That's the first movie I really remember watching, and I feel like I watch it like every night or something. Um, so yeah, I kind of got into comics from there. Like I was really into Spawn when I was a kid. I was probably
Okay.
like way too young to be reading Spawn. I
Yeah.
kind of have like a very vivid memory of like looking through this issue and the like Spawn wasn't in it at all. I was kind of disappointed because like just I didn't really read them. I just looked at it for the Greg Capullo art.
Yeah.
I think when I got to like the last page, it was Spawn, like in the alley, and he was all trussed up against a wall, and there was like bullet
Okay.
holes all in him. His head was gone, decapitated, and I was horrified. And yeah, I kind of like after that, I like took a little break from comics for a couple years, but then came back to it after like the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi movie, and
Okay.
yeah, from there, just like picking up Peter Parker, Spider Man every month, and then I started picking up Daredevil, and then the Hulk, and then just ballooned from there. And now I have a basement full of lawn boxes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't until I don't even know why I kind of got into writing comics. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of clicked for me one day, but it wasn't
Mm,
my late 20s where I started to be like, okay, maybe I can do this, make my own stuff.
yeah. And was that like, did you have the idea first and then as you were exploring like how to get that story out, or was it just kind of like all kind of came together all at the same time?
Yeah, I guess I think for ID10T Air specifically, like I said, it was into theater, I was into filmmaking. So um originally I kind of wanted to do like a short film with it. I like had this idea kind of in my last year of university.
Mm,
So yeah, I wanted to do a small short film. So that's why the first issue is like so kind of small scale. Like there's only three characters in it. It's all set within a basement. And the robot in it is extremely low tech. Like it's just
mm,
made out of like junk that you'd find in a basement. Because I was thinking, I'm not gonna have a lot of money to shoot this. I'm already gonna have to assemble this robot, so it's gonna be a really crappy looking robot, and I can get
yeah.
away with it if it looks like garbage. So yeah, I want to do it like a film. Then I was like, maybe I'll do it as a play for like the Fringe Festival that it's. I'm in Toronto, so that it's a big one in Toronto, and
Okay.
the international thing. And then yeah, I think when for comics, I was just doing like a lot of anthologies, like short stories, 6 page, 8 page, 10 page things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do my own thing. That was again like pretty small scale, not a huge, graphic novel or multi-issue series. So yeah, I kind of like dug up that idea and turned it into yeah, it was originally just supposed to be a one shot.
Okay.
That's why the issue one kind of ends like, it doesn't really end on a cliffhanger. It kind of ends on a final note.
Yeah.
But yeah, then after that, I kind of had more ideas for where else it could go. And yeah, here I am today for issue three.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
love now that you've said that it was through the lens of creating like a short film, that it definitely plays itself out similarly to like a short that I would see somewhere. Like once you said, I was like, oh my god, no, that's totally like all of that is so smart to be like minimal characters, super like easy to find and put together props to create the robot. And it was as I was reading it, it was just like the color palette and the difference of the color palettes with the basement and his upstairs, like subtle things like that that I just really enjoyed. And we'll get into some of the Easter eggs that I'm pretty sure I picked up, that
I'm interested to hear.
I'm hoping that I'm on par with them. um, but anybody that gives love to theater kids in comments, I have to at least mention. So I gotta say hey to DC Patrol,
Hey,
keeping on to the handle and
theater
wishing us good
kids.
evening. And then also the post punk Ken, hanging out for just a little bit, because I think I've officially decided that anybody that comes on the show, I'm gonna refer to them as post punks. um,
Yeah, I saw that today.
because alum just didn't feel right. That feels
Yeah,
very like
yeah.
university.
Yeah,
So,
I work at a university, so like in the marketing department, so I'm always like typing
okay.
in alum, student, like part of my vocabulary now. But yeah, it doesn't have that kind of cool ring to it. Yeah, it's more
Yeah,
academic. You don't want that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I forget which comic shop told me to use that on Instagram, and I really need to figure that out so that I can properly credit them every time I say post punk. So okay, so let's talk. I'm embarrassed to say it took me a long time, and by that I mean like until maybe like 3 hours ago, to put together that ID10T spells out idiot. Like I just put that together just like a couple hours ago as I was writing down notes and questions for this. So as I was reading through the first issue, um, let me have you set up the story because I don't know how much you want to give away, and that'll help me
Sure. Yeah.
define. what I want to lean into and talk more about. So yeah, give us the rundown of ID10T error.
Sure. So, it's the story of a man who creates this AI robot in his basement. And so the reason that he's doing this is, not for the betterment of mankind or any kind of grand purpose like that. The only reason is he wants to give this thing life so he can torture and kill it immediately. Once the robot comes online and it gains consciousness, its survival instinct kind of kicks in and it
Mm.
does everything it can to escape this basement and this madman. So from there, issue one is like a very cat and mouse kind of he gets them, they get them type thing, kind of like hostile. And then from issue two, like spoilers, the robot escapes, but more problems kind of unravel from there. And the kind of world expands out from there. Which is interesting. Like I said, issue one was all kind of the play in mind, the short film, and then issue two, I'm like, okay, so I'm writing a comic, so I don't have to worry about like, you know, getting locations or
Yeah.
permits and whatnot. It can just be anywhere. So yeah, that was a motivation for kind of like expanding out from there. And it's set in Toronto, my hometown, home city. So yeah, and issue three is funding now. So issue three is the final issue. And yeah, I guess without getting to any spoilers, Bradley, the man, he's kind of found himself in this new position of power.
Mm.
It's kind of everything that he's ever wanted and said he's wanted, but he's still not happy because he still hasn't destroyed this AI yet, which is kind of secretly gnawing at him. And then the AI is kind of uh, trapped within its own mind, kind of a prison of its own mind, kind of like in its source code. And yeah, it kind of delves into like identity and who they are and what they want. And yeah, and then from there kind of it goes into a big bombastic conclusion. So yeah, I'm excited to wrap it all up.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like all of the beats that you've got that carry through from the first issue, and then it does feel like the second issue you just like the shackles are off, all bets are off, and like let's see how wild we can go. As I was reading it, I was really wondering, like, do you have computer programming background? That really
Zero.
like is that just like research? Because there
Really?
were
I
certain moments that I was like, God, this feels like he does this all the time, and like all
oh,
these
really?
programming windows and the codecs and stuff that you're using, I was just like, if I knew just like I know enough that I can have a conversation and sound not completely out of my depth. Because I got a couple buddies that do like app development and like troubleshooting and that sort of thing, and they talk about their work, and I'm like, oh, I totally know what that means, and then I like go home and Wikipedia like a fool all the things that I didn't know what they were talking about. But yeah, they're like some of the dialogue windows and some of the stuff as he's creating like that fartgram. It was just like, how is this, are these like real lines of code?
No. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Like, I thought I was always kind of worried because I did zero research and, I just maybe like I Google Wikipedia, like that's as far as I went. I'm like, okay, that sounds computery. I guess I'll put that in. I was worried that like people who know their stuff, if they read it, they'd be like, wow, this is like so off the mark. This is like Stan Lee kind of like space rays, like, oh, it sounds sciencey, so good enough.
Yeah,
No, no, none at all. Like, yeah, for some of the coding, I think I just went online, um,
that's
and
awesome.
just like copy and pasted stuff. Like I typed in, give me source code. I
Yeah,
think at one point, I don't know if it's in the first issue or the second issue, but yeah, it's in the second issue where kind of Burpo is like traveling in the computer digital space. So I think
yeah.
I looked up like code for a Furby or something and just kind of like copy and pasted it and like,
That's
okay, that
awesome.
looks computery and just yeah, gave it to Frank, who's the letterer, and
You had me.
put that in.
So
Yeah,
that's
cool. That's exciting to
awesome.
hear.
So all right,
Yeah,
so I before we get into more of just the experience of creating this book with the team that you've got, um I'm really curious. Are you a pro wrestling fan?
no, I'm not.
Awesome. Great. All right. Because you've got Wowie Zowie Media that shows up
Uh-huh.
when his boss calls him. And
Yeah.
like that was one of the catchphrases of Bray Wyatt back when he was doing like the super off the rails, like
Really?
kind of crazy guy. He would be like, Wowie Zowie. And like that was the thing. And I was like, is that a Bray Wyatt reference? And then okay, cool. So 0 for 1. But okay, Dragon Z ball on the shelf next to programming and stuff. Did you put that in when we're
Oh, I
first
didn't know.
seeing Bradley's living room?
Dragon Z Ball?
Yeah, like
I
it
didn't even
just like
notice that.
switched it for the copyright. But yeah, I was like, that's gotta
No,
be
I didn't.
Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that's Otavio. Like, yeah, I'm sure he did that. He put in some references that I didn't even catch. There's
Awesome.
like a Mystery Science 3000
Yep, that
Easter
was
egg in there. That
the
okay, yeah, yeah, that wasn't me. Like, I didn't put any Easter eggs in this, so I'm always curious, or like I'm interested when people like mention Easter eggs. I'm like, what Easter egg?
in my book. That's
Yeah, I didn't.
awesome.
Dragon Z Ball.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. I have
yeah.
to go look at it. Have
I
you? Oh yeah, I do. Here it is. By the way, it's like a oversized book too.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah. So I don't know. Here's this would be your standard comic. This is how it kind of stacks up. Boop, boop.
Awesome.
Yep, it's a lot bigger. Um, yeah, you continue. Now I'm gonna look up the Dragon Z Ball.
Yeah, it's when Bradley, like when we first see him go upstairs after he thinks
Yeah.
he's got the robot tied up, and there's like a zoom in panel of it's like programming and robotics and Dragon Z Ball. And I was like, that's really
Nice.
that's so great. So yeah, so that's all Otavio then that's adding those things in.
Oh yeah. He adds lots of stuff in. I think for like that page specifically, I don't even think I when I'm writing something, I'm pretty lazy, so there's always like one or two scenes that I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. So like instead of just like sitting there kind of struggling with it, I'll just type in a couple of sentences being like, this is what happens, and then I'll move on to like stuff where I know what's gonna
Mm.
happen. And then yeah, I'm just lazy, and then I never get around to actually writing it. And then suddenly Ottavio's like at that page, and it's like, okay, there's no script here, so what do you want me to do? And he just kind of like comes up with something.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and then after I'll like put in the dialogue. So yeah, I don't do it that often. Just a couple of times that's happened. Yeah.
That's cool.
Otherwise, I'm pretty detailed. Yeah.
So how did you so like process wise, how with the background of like wanting to do film, when you first started writing like the first issue, were you writing the script for the issue similar to like a movie script or with like the full, scene breakdowns and then the dialogue, or was it just even then was it still the like something's got to happen here, but like this is key so I can write out all of that detail? Like how did that writing the first issue like translate from the film background and the theater background even?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I never actually got around to writing a film script of it. It's just an idea. Um, so yeah, like the first time I actually kind of sat down and wrote it was during the comic. And yeah, like I'd written comics before by that point, like short stories, like I said, 6-pager things. So like I knew the format of, panel one, page one, panel one, stuff happens, dialogue, panel two, blah blah blah. Um, so yeah, so I kind of had the format down. Now I forgot the second part of your question.
That's all right. Because I mean, as you were answering that, I was like, oh, duh! Like you had the anthology stuff before, so you would have already been writing scripts for. So like this wouldn't have been. But is this the longest book that you've written?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, this is the only kind of series that I've written or like graphic novel. Well, I guess that's not true. That's been released. Like I'm working on one currently that I finished like a couple of weeks ago. It took me about 2 years.
Okay.
That I have an artist working on it. Also, she's been working on it for about 2 years. But yeah, so I've done four Kickstarters. Three of them were for ID10T Error, and then the last one that I did was for an anthology like of my own work. So it's mostly short stories. So yeah, this is the longest thing I've ever written. Yeah,
Cool.
because
And
the
do
other
you,
thing I did is like 70 pages. So yeah, this is the
okay.
longest.
So when you're writing for an anthology compared to like the three issues for this, like how, like prep wise, how do those two differ in like your writing approach?
Um, yeah, I think usually writing for anthologies was pretty easy. The hard part was coming up. The hard part was pitching. So that like,
Mm,
coming up with a really good idea, coming up with like the story of it. And once you come with like the idea and you've got the story down and you write it down, and it's one page, you've pretty much, got all the beats right there. So at that point, it's just, breaking it down into 6 pages. Um, for this, yeah, it's a lot harder because, you have the story down,
mhm,
but there's like a lot of in between stuff that needs to happen before like those big plot points, which you don't really have in like a short story. It's like all kind of go, go, go.
yeah.
So yeah, like I said, like there are some moments where like, okay, I know there needs to be a scene where Bradley, goes back upstairs and he's kind of off on his own and he's unwinding. He's kind of like grappling with like how miserable his life is. I need that like break between, the AI coming to life and then the AI kind of trying to escape.
Mm,
But I don't know what I'm gonna do exactly, what's gonna happen here. So yeah, like stuff like that, kind of the big
mm,
bombastic stuff I found, the big plot points, it's like all that stuff in between, like the kind of cartilage of the story, the character moments that kind of strings it all together is a lot tougher for me.
mm. It's interesting the way that you call it the cartilage of the story. So do you always like have the bare bones idea and then of like here's the things that need to happen and then go back, revisit, fill in the cartilage, go back, revisit, or like send it to Otavio and then he starts putting on the muscle and the skin and then you come back in with the lettering and then the color does their thing. Like, is that kind of how the book comes together?
Yeah, kind of. Like I'd say like I usually have like the beginning of the story like really, 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 really plotted out like in my head. Like I kind of think of it over and over again. Like
Yeah.
usually with my scripts, like page one of the script will be like panel one will be like half a page long of just like all this very vivid description because like I've been thinking about for so long.
Yeah.
Jeez me. But then, as we go on, I'm kind of less sure of what's gonna happen. And my panel descriptions are like 3 words like AI punches Bradley or something. Um, yeah, so yeah, I think like I usually have the beginning really kind of tight, like sorted out, and then a couple of moments that happen after, and then the middle is usually pretty sparse, and then the ending again too is kind of like I kind of know where I want to go, but
Mm.
not really. Yeah, usually when I'm kind of plotting out a script, I'll like get half the plot out, and then I'll kind of get bored of plotting. I'll just like, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna dive in and write this thing and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so usually when I hand it off to Tavia, like they're pretty much done the script. Um, Maybe a few things are missing. But yeah, like he adds like obviously he adds so much more to it than what's just on the script.
Yeah. So how did the two of you connect like to begin
Yeah.
with?
Yeah, so yeah, for this, like I mentioned, I did a lot of anthologies before, so
Mhm.
I was pretty fortunate with, all I had to do is pitch the story, and then if they accepted it, they're like, okay, cool, here's an artist that we're going to pair you with,
Oh wow.
and give us a script, and we'll give them the script, and they'll make an awesome comic, and you don't really have to do anything. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
For this, like, is all on my own, so I had to like go out and search for the team, and yeah, I went on Reddit. There's like an indie comics kind of collaboration
Okay.
subreddit. Yeah, and I saw his post there. Like there's one page he did. I don't even know what it was from. I think it might just been like a sample thing he did. But like as soon as I saw it, like I knew like I had to get this guy for the script. It was like something like a night or something, and like his style was very kind of not photorealistic, but more realistic looking, like normal anatomy of a person.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like it was all like that by panel like six or something. The character sees something surprising, and then like all of a sudden, like he turns into a Looney Tunes character, and it's like this kind of like cartoon thing with like these bug eyes sticking out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just thought that was so cool. I don't know, it kind of had like a very European vibe to it,
Mm.
like a bande dessinée or something like that. Um, so yeah, I thought that style would work really well for our book, and I think I was right. Yeah, it did. Like there's
Yeah.
a bunch of moments like in issues 1 and 2 where Bradley will just like turn into whatever. He'll get really angry, and suddenly he has like these sharp teeth and jaws and like these gigantic eyebrows or something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It feels
but yeah, that's
very it feels very anime where
yeah.
like uh gosh, what the I know the like the I never watched Pokemon, but that for some reason is the reference that I'm thinking, like the two
I
that
just
were
watched
always trying to
Pokemon.
take down Ash. Like the
Team
the
Rocket.
guy with the yeah, Team Rocket. I wanted to say
STJ.
Rocket Power, but I was like, that's a Nickelodeon
Close
cartoon.
enough.
Yeah, so Team Rocket, like they would have the thing, and anytime they would get defeated immediately, they would get the like giant teardrop sweat and like the fading of the color, and the eyes would be super drawn down, and it just adds that extra emotional like that's really fun. And so because immediately when I saw one of the first times that Bradley has that reaction, it's in the background. It feels very similar with his mouth just gets huge and the teeth are very pronounced. And it was like, that's super fun. Like I didn't
Yeah.
expect that. And I really like that touch because it just emphasizes like that emotional moment for him as a character. Is he the only one that gets those? I'm trying to think if anybody, I don't remember seeing anybody else have those.
Yeah, I think I think like the AI gets maybe like a couple.
Okay.
I think Ash might like have one kind of moment. Yeah, I think she does like in the second issue where
Okay.
like one of her lackeys comes up and asks her about something
That's
when
right.
she's like
Yep.
grilling Bradley, and she turns around and she's like her. But that might be like the only one that's outside of Bradley. Yeah, Bradley's like the one that's most suited for him because he has the most emotions. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, when you were so I like how you said it reading the pitch of like it's kind of a revenge story and he creates this AI just to turn around and torture and kill it. And so I was like, but like, is he just an evil guy? And so reading the first issue and into the second issue, when you see more of his background with Ash and then see more of that relationship build out, it was very much like I mean, I kind of get it. And so I'm curious, like, is it fun for you writing like this almost kind of tormented, like demented character that he kind of has become, where he's just trying to torture and murder this AI?
Was it yeah, it was totally fun. Yeah, it's fun because yeah, I mean he's the villain of the story, and I don't even think he's like a particularly sympathetic villain. I think he's like just like bad dude. Like even when we go into like the backstory of him, like why he's done what he's done, but even in that backstory, you see like there's somebody trying to reach out to him and offer him a helping hand, and he kind of like slaps it away.
Yeah.
It's just like a guy that feels he's owed everything
Mm.
when he really kind of doesn't contribute anything to anybody and only thinks about himself. Yeah, I mean, like when I started writing this, there's an incident in Toronto. Like this, it's not funny. There was a man who like ran down a bunch of people, and this kind of started off like the
Wow.
incel like thing. Like this guy claimed he was an incel, and like that's why he did it. His motivation for doing it, and then that like sparked like the whole conversation that happened like a bunch of years ago about now we all know about incels and like what that is and what. So yeah, he's kind of like a character like that kind
Mm.
of villain of lived a pretty good life. Nothing particularly bad has ever happened to him, but he just feels like he's been slighted by society and everybody's out to get him. So he uses like his genius for the most useless, petty thing he could possibly do, which is yeah, I mean, I can spoil it. He turns his laptop that crashed on him in college into a living being just so he's able to get revenge on it. Yeah.
Which is just brilliant, by the way. It's so good. So okay, so you've got, have you always written like with the anthologies? Um, do you find yourself writing in one like genre more often than others? Um, or is it just
Yeah.
kind of like playing in different sandboxes and seeing which ones are the most fun for you?
No, it's definitely not even on purpose, like the same genre. Yeah, so like it's funny because um I kickstarted a anthology last year
Mhm.
called Everyday Fears, which was like half of it was collecting stories that I'd done for anthologies and just like putting them in one book, and then other half was like pitches that I'd sent out that were rejected, but I like really liked the story, so I didn't want to let it go. I still wanted to make it.
Mm.
And yeah, what I kind of found from that was like all these different stories that I made for these different anthologies, like over 2 or 3 years, were thematically similar. They were
Mm.
all horror comedies, and they were all kind of slice of life horror comedies about the mundane interacting with the fantastical. So yeah, it was not at all by design, just kind of happened that way. So I was like, okay, like some of these books haven't ever been printed. They're just released digitally, and I kind of want to have like the thing in my hands. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's put it out in an anthology and yeah, put it all together.
That's awesome. And that one, is that the book that's available as an add-on in your
Yeah,
current
you can, yeah,
campaign?
yeah, you can add it on.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna cheat and look at your Kickstarter. So you've got, you're
Shoot away.
currently sitting at 66 backers,
Mhm.
23 days to go. So I believe you're still like this is the end of the first week of the campaign, right? So
Yeah, so I
you're
launched last Tuesday. So yeah,
okay.
yeah,
That's awesome. So that's like 11 backers a day if you break that out by my really
yeah,
rudimentary math.
yeah.
um, that's awesome. So tell me about how you've got a variant cover on this one.
Hmm.
Was that another anthology artist that you had worked with? Or how did that come
Yes,
about?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so John Berg is the variant cover artist. He did a Frankenstein story with me. So it
Mm,
was for this anthology called Into Being. So it was a 200th anniversary kind of zine about the publication of Frankenstein. So it was
mm.
comics, essay comics, and there's like some text pieces in it. So our story was the creation of the monster from the perspective of Frankenstein's downstairs kind of nosy neighbor.
That's
So
awesome.
it's just like, yeah, he's pissed off because he's got a date over and there's like blood coming through ceiling, and there's weird smells, and the date ditches him, and he leaves an angry note on Frankenstein's door, and yeah, just dumb stuff like that. So yeah, again, that was a case where I was kind of paired with him. Like, I didn't, seek him out or anything, but
Mhm.
yeah, like obviously his work was amazing on that. And yeah, just kind of kept in contact with him. Like we're both from I'm from Toronto. He's from somewhere a bit north of Toronto. So like
Okay.
we ran each other at local cons and kept in contact. I like buy his stuff whenever he comes up with something new. And yeah, I just reached out to him and asked if he'd want to do this. And yeah, he was yeah, enthusiastic to do it. So
That's awesome.
we'll also be selling that as the original art of the cover
Okay.
is one of the is like our top reward tier. So yeah, if anybody's interested in that, yeah, go for it. I mean, I love collecting original art. I don't have the money to do it. I only have like a couple of pieces, but
Yeah.
yeah, if I had yeah all the money, if I was in ink, double income, no kids, I would be all over the original art. But alas,
Yeah.
I pay
Here we
for
are.
daycare and camp and this other stuff. So
Yep.
I'll have to wait.
Yep. No, I'm right there with you. I would love to have originals all over my walls instead of the prints that I have. I'm happy with the prints, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's
Something
something
about the
about those
original.
originals. It's just
Yeah,
like you can see the motion of the, if they were
yeah.
using markers, you can see that in the page, and you miss that with a lot of prints. So I do love that as well. Do you have like if you could if you had an unlimited black card, if for some reason the billionaires of the world were like, what
Yeah.
we're gonna do? We're gonna give this guy unlimited money to buy anything he wanted to buy, but it has to be original art and it can only be one piece. Do you know what that one piece would be?
Uh, I feel like I did at one point. I really would love. There's one piece I had my eye on for the longest time, but I think it sold, unfortunately. But it was
Mhm.
Apollo Riviera. When he did those Mythos comics, I don't.
Okay.
He did it with like Paul Jenkins. It was like retelling, but he like painted all of them like these oil paintings, and they look absolutely beautiful. So yeah, he did a Spider-Man issue, and there is
Mhm.
one like I think where Spider-Man is kind of like revealed for the first time in full, and he's like stopping the robber, and yeah, it's just like a huge panel of like him kind of like on the ceiling, and then the robber or the burglar kind of like. "Ugh."
That's
I would
awesome.
have loved to get that. Anything by him, I would love to have, but a lot of money, so can't
Yeah.
do it. Him and Jeff Lemire, like I'd love to get Jeff Lemire too. He's a
Yes.
little more affordable. Oh, you got one?
No, I don't have any, but you're
Oh,
the first person that I've talked to that has brought up Jeff Lemire on their own. Usually I'm the one that brings him up.
oh,
So
really? Yeah, I mean he's a Toronto guy too. So yeah,
yeah.
I've been yeah, following his stuff since like the Essex County days. Like he
Okay.
was kind of there's a broadcaster in Canada called CBC. It's kind of like the official Canadian broadcaster, but
Yeah.
he put out Essex County and they kind of like absolutely loved him and they nominated for him for this like best book of the century or something like that.
Oh
Like
wow.
a really big deal. Like he was up against like um Margaret Atwood and like all these other big names. So yeah, that's kind of where I first heard about him, like before his kind of just when he started working with DC and Vertigo and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would love something by him.
That's awesome. I do love his like the watercolor when he does all like takes on the cartoonist hat and does the writing and the artwork and all of
Yeah.
it. Like those are I've really enjoyed. I just picked up the final issue of Fish Flies. I haven't read it yet, but I like that series has been so much fun. And I'm the same way. If I hadn't moved my stuff, I'd be pointing out. I have a whole shelf of just Jeff Lemire books. He and Matt Kint are my top two creators, and they both love doing watercolor art. So it's, I guess I have a type. but yeah, I so being stateside, I've been trying to figure out how I can watch Essex County because it was only released through the CBC, and like I don't have the technological know-how to like lie to a computer and throw my VPN to a Canadian zip
Oh
code
yeah,
so that I can try and just like because it hasn't been released on any stateside streaming that I've been able to find yet. So
that's the
um
point. So
yeah.
you can't watch it on CBC Gem? Like if you're outside of Canada, you're not able to, because I know CBC
Um
Gem is like free. Like it's like their kind of
that's my
streaming
price.
app.
Okay. I will look that up
Yeah,
because
maybe you can catch it there. Like unless it's
that'd be great.
like I don't know, landlocked or location locked. Like
Mm,
it's only free in Canada, but I don't know, worth checking out.
worth a shot. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, what's another, free trial anyway? Like hopefully they have a 7 day. I
Yeah.
can
I
get through
think that
quite a
series is
bit.
like only that series is pretty short too, so you can get through it like in a evening or two.
Yeah. Yeah. I could. All right. Great. I'm going to be looking that up. Thanks for that.
Okay. Good work.
See, this is the
Now,
beauty of the indie comics community, just helping each other
totally.
out. So are you able to talk about the book that you've been working on for 2 years? Like
Yeah,
in that
sure.
process?
hmm Oh, the process? Yeah. It's been a long process. Yeah, so it's called a journey into the abyss. Like this story, it's very eclectic. It's very, I don't know, it seems like it's made for an audience of one, which is me. Like nobody's asking for this at all. So it's based on the films of Georges Méliès. I'm not sure if if even if you're
I
not familiar with Georges Méliès, you know who he is.
Okay.
He's a filmmaker that lived, in the early days of cinema. So he's making films like late 1890s, early 1900s.
Got it. Okay.
And his most famous film is A Trip to the Moon. So it's the one
Okay.
where the astronauts go to the moon, the guy in the moon gets the rocket in his eye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I know
yeah.
that one.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's he made hundreds of films like that,
Okay.
trick films. He was kind of like the Michael Bay of his time. Like he was this pioneer in trick cinema and special effects. Things would be superimposed over a black screen, and people would be like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so it's kind of uh, taking all of his films and kind of mushing it into like one cosmos or one kind of continuity.
Okay.
So it kind of takes place like years after a trip to the moon, where like society has now, I don't know, gone out into space, and there's like this utopian society where the entire solar system is united, and one woman has kind of taken upon herself to kind of do the impossible and go beyond the stars.
Mm,
So yeah, it's kind of like that. It's comedy again. It's very or not cyberpunk, steampunk
okay.
inspired. Very, I don't know, science according to 15th century England or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Earth is at the center of the solar system, and the moon's like in the third, or not the moon, yeah, I don't know, moon's first reign, and then sun's like the third reign or something like that. So yeah, I've been working with an artist named Marissa Mayhew, for about, yeah, probably over 2 years. She's Canadian from the Winnipeg area.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been a journey. Stopping and starting, and yeah, I'm hoping to kickstart it next
Okay.
spring, hopefully. Yeah. So I'm
Awesome.
excited for it. It's gonna be good.
Well, your audience of one just became an audience of two.
All right, got
Because
two.
we're in it. We're making it happen. Because I love watching. So my go-to genre for any movie is horror. Um, and I love like I'm actually getting ready to finish building out. I take like a week to build my list every year of horror movies to watch. But I always start my watch throughs with taking a horror movie from every decade and watching those. And it's fascinating to me to see how the definition of horror changed from the early 1890s and early 1900s with silent films and like the scores relying on the striking visuals all the way through to today, where it's almost kind of taking a step back into that same, like, let's get the striking visuals and the big music cues, and it's less about, you know, the gore and the ridiculous of the 70s and 80s, which is great. And I love all of that. Don't get me wrong. But there's something to be said when I watch some of the old, like, you know, turn of the century, some of the first horror films, because they're like 6 minutes long. Um, it just is fascinating to me how far ahead of their time a lot of those are. And that the Trip to the Moon is one of those where it's like, how did they even think? Like for us, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, you just transpose film and like that's how you do the thing. How in the heck were they thinking that far ahead 150 years ago? Like, I don't, it just, I'm so blown away by that process. And I have such a respect for like filmmaking in general and comic book creation, because it's so much work to do and coordination and, you know, getting the right artist and then, you know, going back and forth with the whole thing to make it a reality and then being able to hold it finally in your hands.
Yeah.
Like I love everything about comics and the making of it. My degree is in broadcasting, so like I studied filmmaking, and so even more so of just like I just don't get it when I look at, you know, some of those older films, like how in the heck were they thinking that far ahead? So I love that you're doing a story that's all about those. Like I'm gonna look him up and see what else I can find of his to watch, because I know that
Yeah.
like it's innate. Once you said it, once you said the Trip to the Moon, I was like, oh, that guy. Like
Yeah.
I've seen like playlists of a bunch of his stuff on like YouTube that, you know, because it's in public domain at this point, that just got uploaded. And I'm like the person that's like, I'm gonna watch all of these, and so now I'm gonna
Yeah.
try and watch
A
all of
Trip to the
those.
Moon, like the fantastic, I think it's called the Fantastic Voyage, or the no, the Impossible Voyage
Mm-hmm.
is like a trip to the moon, but they go to the sun instead. And of course, like the sun is like just a hot place that is a rock.
Yeah.
Um, I think yeah, Journey to the Pole or something like that is another one. And my favorite title of him, I think, is The Merry Frolics of Satan. That's my favorite like English translation
That's
of his
awesome.
title. That's a good one to check out too.
Merry Frolics of Satan.
Yep.
Definitely not words that belong together. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that one's really cool. It's like this carriage in like space that's being pulled by like this skeleton horse, and there's like these shooting stars passing by in that kind of like very flat style.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool. You should check that one out.
great. I am definitely going to do that. So we've talked about like the influence of film on your process and on your creation. Does music also influence your creative process at all?
Um, no, I'm kind of a
Fair.
weirdo. I really don't listen to a lot of music.
Okay.
People always ask me like, "What's my favorite band?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't really have one. Yeah, yeah. I'm just a weird guy. I don't really ever listen to music that much. So yeah, it doesn't really well, that's not true. Sometimes I do kind of get into it. Like when I was writing this Méliès script, I just maybe I watched it more for the visuals, but the
Mm,
Smashing Pumpkins Tonight, like I watched
yeah,
that on yeah, like over and over again. Just to kind of get like that visual style of that music video, and then just
yeah.
like the song kind of also inspired me too. So, but yeah, generally no, I kind of need to work in silence. Like if there's music playing, I find it very distracting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, you're not alone. I have talked to people all over the spectrum where it's like I have to have music playing all the time, or like I only listen to music if I'm trying to get into a creative brain space that I can do something. I It's funny, like for me, it varies on like the day. I could wake up some days and I'm just like today was one of them where I was just like I started to play music as I was working, and I was just like, I can't do this, and like turned it off and went right back to just like silently click clacking away on the keyboard. And then other days, like I can't do anything if it's like I have to have music to show the passage of time and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So it's definitely interesting to me because every like no two people feel the same about music, especially when it comes to their creation and like their creative process. So I always have to ask, because the long box punk, like I gotta work that in somehow.
Yeah.
Um, other than
Sorry, I couldn't
just
oblige.
no, I still like it's super interesting to me. Like everybody has their process. Everybody's like the origin story getting into making comics. People end up making comics, but like that's the only similarity. Everything else is different. And so like everybody's story is unique, and that's why I love doing this show, just to like give myself a high five for 2 seconds. Like I think it's interesting how different everybody's stories are, and yet we all find ourselves in this space of the comic book medium, telling stories that are we want to tell, that we're interested in, that we just think are fun stories to tell and want to see and hold and make tangible. And I think that payoff's great. So um all right, so we did that. I'm cheating and looking at my notes. Cool. We need to pose for the YouTube thumb because I just saw my note for that. So I'm gonna
Okay.
get the keystroke ready, and then all right, ready? We'll
Okay.
do it in three, two. Great. Cool, cool, cool. All right.
Nailed
The
it.
the last thing, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw you for a loop here.
Okay, let's do it.
I um I am gonna shut up and I am just gonna turn the mic over to you. If there's anything you want people to hear, it could be about you, it could be about your book, it could be about the quality of paper that is used in grade schools. I don't know where that came from, but like it could be anything that you've got on your heart that you just want people to hear and to know. I just would love to hear whatever that thing might be for you.
Sure. I don't know. Can I talk about like my Kickstarter a little bit and like the I guess the team?
Absolutely.
So we didn't really go into that. I was
Yeah.
just talking about me. But yeah, a whole team went into this. They're really awesome people. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think I gave Ottavio his due. Like he is our line artist on this, and he does an amazing job. Like I said, what drew to me him to was like that kind of realistic style with the cartoony stuff, but he's also like really amazing at doing facial expressions, which is very important for this book, I think, since like again, Bradley is just like so much. I don't know, he's very Homer Simpson-ish, and so he needs that kind of huge reactions all the time. So Ottavio's amazing at that. And you mentioned the colors, like that's kind of the one of the most consistent compliments I get on the book, especially the
Mhm.
first issue. And yeah, I had zero input in that whatsoever. I think so. The colorist is Kay Wolliser, and she's a colorist and also a comic book artist as well. She does a series with Easton Deverna. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Mm-mm.
Oh shoot, no. I'm blanking on the name of the series, but it's a very awesome fantasy series. Oh, I'm such a jerk. I can't remember it. It's gonna hit me after the podcast. Anyways, it's really great. Totally check it out. But yeah, like yeah, her colors are amazing in this book. Um, yeah, I think I showed her like one image that the inspiration for like this cover comes from this movie poster I just thought was really cool from like a 1950s movie called like Frankenstein Jr. or like some I don't know, something Frankenstein.
Mm.
And I showed her that, and she kind of like took that as inspiration and kind of went off and did her color palette in the basement.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, every time like she shows me the colors, like, oh, I did not imagine that, but it looks awesome. And then yeah, the letterer is Frank Sekovic. And then again, I just like kind of found him while searching online. He's a professional letterer. He does a lot of work for Dark Horse and
Mm.
other publishers. And yeah, I don't know, there's kind of like this handcrafted quality to his letters, like on this book and other books that he does that I just love. There's one moment where he sent me the about like the letters that he sent back, and there were a few instances where like Ottavio kind of like drew in the sound effects here and there. Like I think like on the second page where Bradley is kind of coming down the stairs and there's a creak,
Hmm.
Ottavio drew that himself. And then there are some instances where Frank did like a perfect version of like Ottavio's handwritten style. So I was like, oh man, that's awesome that you also like hand draw your stuff. Or like I seem like kind of hands draws it with like on the iPad or whatever with the stencil. And he's like, oh no, it's all digital. It's just fonts, and I just kind of manipulate them. And it's like, whoa,
That's
really?
crazy.
Yeah, he's just
It's so
yeah,
wild.
they're so good. And yeah, so the lucky enough that they've stuck around for all three issues, so you get that one complete vision of all the team members. And yeah, I guess we got like a bunch of cool rewards. Like I talked about the variant cover by John Berg. We have the digital catch up tier, so you can get all three issues for 21 Canadian. You can get a physical catch up for 45 Canadian. And then, yeah, we have the chance to be drawn into the book, which I think is the coolest thing we have to offer. Um, Tavio does like a really, really good job of capturing the likeness of the people that we that sign up for the reward. So yeah, you can be in the book, be a character in the book, and yeah, it's not for that much money. It's like 150 Canadian plus like you're getting the book as well and the digital version. So yeah, and there we have like some original art too from Ottavio. He drew issue one, like 90% of issue one in pencil and ink on
Oh,
paper,
cool. Yeah.
and then after that he kind of went digital. So there's 5 pages left. They are very limited. So once he's doing books for he's doing the next big DC events, you're really gonna want to have like your hand on it, an Ottavio Galino original page. So this is your chance to get it.
Yeah. That's great. Now, is there, with this being the final issue, is there a plan to like collect them all three into a trade? Or are you
Yeah.
just happy to have the three as standalone issues?
N No, I'd really love to do the trade. We'll have to see how this campaign goes. Like
Mm.
the last campaign I did for this was pretty slow. This one's been pretty slow, so yeah, I would love to, but like if there's not a whole ton of interest in it, then I guess like doesn't make sense feasibly. But I guess it
Mm.
wouldn't be as much because like the art's all done. I just have to pay for printing and shipping, but yeah, I would love to. There's like a 6-page epilogue scene that I would love to like put in the trade back paperback that's
Oh,
not going
that's
to be in
cool.
issue 3.
Yeah.
And then I kind of wanted to do like a making of comic that's kind of like Chester Brown, Seth kind of like uh indie biograph style about like me and Ottavio's experience making this comic, and
Oh,
just something
cool.
like short, like 12 pages, but kind of do a spin on like the back matter stuff, of not just like having designs and scripts or whatever, but kind of having that back matter and weaving it into a story,
Yeah,
like the making of. So if I do a trade, it'll include that stuff. So it won't just be this story; it'll be extra stuff too. But yeah, we'll see.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it shakes out.
Cool. Well, yeah, like we mentioned, and the link is in the video description. So whether or not you're watching this now live, later on the replay, or even listening to this, it's all in the show description. So the Kickstarter is right there, right at the top. You've got, see, I'm in US, so I can't do math on this.
Okay.
US,
Yeah,
the my numbers are, we're looking at 4732 as the goal,
very specific.
right?
Yeah, so
Um,
Canadian 6,500.
it's so much cleaner.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there it is. Okay,
Yeah,
I
I
just
think you can
I
convert
can
it like if
hover.
you
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've got just over, switching to Canadian, $6,500 Canadian currency goal. You've got just over 2,000 pledged. So that's roughly what, like right at a third, right? Two
Yeah, I think
thirds
we're
ish.
32%, so almost
Okay.
almost a third. We're just on the cusp of having a third funded.
I'll take a 1% variance. That's
Yeah.
my life is a 1% variance. So 23 days to go. Um, I I really would love to see this obviously fund because not just because you're on the show, but because I'm really enjoying this series. Um, the way
You
that the way that Otavio gives so much emotion to a robot with a face that like with just using the eyes is incredible to me. Like it's masterclass to I don't know how he gets the
Yeah,
emotion out of that he does.
it's
Um,
funny, like, I did a podcast last week, and the person there also mentioned that as well, like, I don't know, that never really clicked with me, like, "Oh, yeah, it's just a mask. How do you make it so expressive?" Like,
yeah.
I obviously knew when I was reading it, like, "Oh, this looks great," and he's very good at, like, making expressions, but, like, yeah, that never I don't know, that never clicked with me right away until that person brought it up, and it kinda, like, blew my mind, and I gained, like, a whole new respect for Otavio.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when V for Vendetta, which is one of my favorite movies, like it's like anytime you see V on camera, even though it's got the Guy Fawkes mask, you know what the emotion is coming, and like that's the power of the actor. Whereas with the book, like that's the power of the writing and the artist that are
Yeah,
combining into, and like the colorist, and like all of those things come together to like it really takes the like our powers combined to make it work. How's that for a Captain Planet reference? Didn't think you'd get that tonight, did you? But yeah, it really does take a team that you can tell has been working together on the previous two issues, looking at the preview pages for the third. I'm just really excited to see this come to fruition. I wish I had all of the money to be added to the book and drawn in and all of the things all the time.
yeah.
I just, I'm
We all
working
gotta
on,
pack we wanna pack, like, back a lot of Kickstarters, and we wanna give everybody their
yeah,
money, like, I
yeah.
can't yeah, I'm the same, like, I wanna back so many, but I'd rather back a lot,
Hmm.
and get, like, something instead of just, like, being very specific and getting that one big thing,
Yeah.
so, yeah, totally,
And
I get it.
it's
Same
great
way.
too. Like if anybody that's listening hasn't heard it before, reading digital comics is actually like super enjoyable. Like I'm
Right.
very
There's
old school. I've been reading, physical. I've been going to comic shops for 3+ decades, and I have always when digital first started coming, I was like, I don't care. Like, no, comic books are a thing that I can pick up and I can hold in my hand, and I can put in a bag and board and have it and hold it and look at it and smell it and be weird about it, and that's fine because like I want to put it in a long box and then have my collection that I can like flip through and touch and feel and see. Like it's a full sensory thing for me. And I don't know if that's because I might be like mildly autistic or something about it. I don't know. But like that's my thing. Comics are my thing. And so I was just always only ever like, nope, physical only. And then I got to the point where my bank account was like, hey, you can't do physical in every book all the time. And so I started backing digital tiers, and I'm like, well, I can do the entire catch up and read all three issues and get fully caught up on the story. And then like there's apps that you can get that you can import PDFs or like the CBR CBZ files, and
okay,
it
yeah.
works like a digital reader like on any of your smart devices. And I sound like a super old man when I'm saying it, but like I'm so excited to find out about that because I instead of having to use Adobe to read everything on my laptop, I can just download an app on my phone, import my stuff, and then I've got my comics on my phone, and I can read them anywhere, like at the line in the DMV. I'm just sitting there like reading my comics, and it's great. So if
Yeah.
no one's heard it before, like give digital a try because I'm not like obviously I'm never gonna stop buying physical, as the stacks and stacks around me would attest to, but like when it comes to supporting indie comics creators, sometimes the difference between funding and not funding is if instead of not backing entirely because you don't have money, if 5 people would have backed digital, that might have made the difference of that entire campaign. And so it's like, to your point of like, there's a lot of indie creators out there making a lot of really good comics. And maybe that's the way to go to, if you can't, if you're like me and you just want to support every indie creator that's ever been, maybe that's the way that you do it. So I don't know. That's my
Yeah,
weird.
I mean, definitely like with digital, like by far that does like gets the most backers on all my campaigns. And yeah, I mean, um, you like to see like you get a backer and you get that big number and it kind of
Mhm.
makes it go up a bit. But it's also really great to grow your audience. Like I'd rather have, you know, a smaller goal, I guess, but have like a lot
Mhm.
of people backing the book rather than, a lot of money, but only have like 20 people just getting like really big physical backing. Yeah, it's all about growing that audience and like digitally is a great way to do it. Plus, it's like it kind of once you build up your library, then it's like a super
Yeah.
easy reward to offer. Like, here's everything I have for $20.
Right.
Um, and I don't have to do anything. Like, I just once it's over, I just click a button, send them the PDF, and no printing, no shipping, none of that hassle. It's just all done
Yeah.
in one fell swoop.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
hearing,
not quite there yet with digital comics. Like personally,
yeah.
I much prefer physical. Like I don't know, I just can't get into reading something off a screen. Maybe that's because like what you said, like I don't have like the proper reader because I don't
Mm,
know, I don't like pinching and I don't really
yeah.
have an iPad or anything, so I'm doing it all off my phone or my laptop. So yeah, I'll get there. I think I'll get there one day. I might have a choice.
Right. Yeah. The way things are going, if shipping costs keep going up and
Oh
up
yeah,
like they
that's
have
another
been.
reason I can't back like a lot of Kickstarters because $10 US for a 20-page comic I'd pay, but $10 US plus $30 shipping US, and all of a sudden like I'm paying $60 for a 20-page comic. Like as much as I
Yeah.
want, and I can't do it. Can't pay that $30
It's
shipping.
so hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like, so I've ended up finding connections with people like overseas, and
Mm,
like that's like $18 to get just a 32-page floppy. And it's like, God, yeah, bring on the animals. And like it's just insane like how much money it costs to ship,
yeah.
and not every creator has the capital to be like, hey, I want to get this out internationally. Like I know, because I didn't know about the thing, there's the Australian tier, which is digital. Because if you back physical and you're not in Australia, it is just it can like shipping can be insane,
Yeah.
to get it stateside. And I
Yeah, and I don't know why, but shipping to the US isn't that bad. Like I'd say 90% of my backers are from the United States, and
mm,
it's not like I use a service called Chit Chats where you get like kind of a discount.
okay.
And like for each book, I'm like depends on the size, but I'm using spending like between 8 Canadian to 15 Canadian to ship to the US. So, it's pretty reasonable, I
Yeah.
think. Um, yeah, it's for some reason like going to the US is fine, but US coming to Canada or US going anywhere else or Canada going anywhere else, it's insane.
It's nuts. Well,
Yeah.
that's the end of my notes. So I can let you get back to your evening, enjoying the quiet while you've got it.
I'm
Um,
just gonna go to bed. I gotta get up early tomorrow. I gotta go to the office,
oh
so
yeah. Yeah, all
maybe
the
finish a comic I was reading, then off to bed I go.
there you go. Well,
Yeah.
hey, Matt, I appreciate you hanging out with me, sharing your insight and your story. I look forward to seeing all of the people that check out the show, immediately clicking all of the links and backing the book. And,
Me too.
would love to save your anxiety some time and get this fully funded before 23 days from now. so we
Pretty
can
nice.
really, give you a little breath. I know, and I know it's already in the video description, but what's the best place to find you on social media?
Best place is probably I'm Twitter, X, whatever. You can find me there at Stupid Matt. That's stupid with two O's, STOOPID underscore Matt. Wow, my cat really wants attention. She probably wants food. Um, yeah, Twitter is usually where I'm most active. I think I'm on Blue Sky too. Not as active there. I can't get into it, even though the vibes there are way better.
Yeah,
But there I'm just Stupid Matt at B Sky Social or whatever that is.
cool. And that's
Yeah, those are two
also,
best places to find me.
yeah, great. And those are for the convenience of the consumers. Those are also linked in the video and show description. So you can easily find Matt there. Make sure to check out the Kickstarter campaign, get in back early so that you can be the hipster that says, yeah, well, I was there on day 7 of the campaign, not day
You don't want
29
to be there on
backer.
day one. You want to be fashionably late for the Kickstarter.
Right,
That's where it's
right.
at. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Obviously. Well, Matt, I appreciate your time. I'm gonna let you get back to your comics, feed your cats, and then get to bed. I'll probably do the same. So that's going to be it for this interview, punks. Thanks for tuning in, sounding off in the comments, and enjoying this interview with Matt. And what's a good podcast without a good tagline? That's it for this interview, punks. Now go do what's good for you and read some indie comics. We're out of here.